Hi, my name's Jeff Marshall and welcome to Bellevue Park. This is like the city's premier park, and we're going to take you through and show you a few of the flower beds around. It was Canada's 150th anniversary, so this year we took one of our biggest beds and did it mostly red and white. The alyssum on the outside, it's a beautiful scent, draws lots of flowers, or bees, and petunias. And you had celosia and salvia. We never used the white salvia very much before, so this year we'd give it a shot because it was something that would show nice, and it turned out very nice. And the canna's down the center. You can't go wrong. It always looks like very tropical. So this one's called Wyoming. It has the orange flower. It turned out beautiful this year. And this was all started from, I think we got 10 little tiny pieces of bulb. So over the last 5 years, we've accumulated a ton of stock that we use, eh? This bed used to be the front bed, but now it's set in behind the large one. We used a centerpiece, we used the Ethiopian banana. That was donated by New North Greenhouses like 2 falls ago. And we used, it's called Lilac Dahlia. That one is, we've been keeping the same bulbs going for probably 14 years. Okay, this one we have sugarcane as the centerpiece, which is always my favorite. Blue Victoria salvia, and this is violet maverick geranium, and then petunias and alyssum on the outside. This year, like, it's been kind of cool nights and lots of water, and the salvia turned out really awesome this year. Even though it's a small bed, you can get a lot of impact from something that's not too complicated and something simple. This is a pink to white geranium. It's an all-American winner, rose neon petunia and white alyssum. And the center is a canna. This was a hibiscus plant that was donated last year by someone to the greenhouse, and we use it as a centerpiece this year. And this is another All-American Selections. I think it was Dragon's Breath celosia. Okay, this is our gazebo bed. This is like the 5th year for this, and you can now see that the shrubbery and that's starting to get full size. It's an awesome bed. We use perennials in the back, and they just show so, and it's such a pretty bed, eh? Okay, this is a perennial. It's Buddleia or butterfly bush. Look at the size of the bloom on that. Usually it'll die right down to the ground. This one did too. And then every year it'll grow up 7-8 feet in one season. And then by spring it dies right down again. You cut it all back, and then it shoots right back up. And it's flowers a little later, so then this one will still be in bloom October. It'll still be full bloom. So it's actually a nice plant for bees and butterflies to get on later in when there's less for them to get nectar from. It's very fragrant too. With all the rain we got this year, the echinacea is absolutely beautiful. Look at the size of it. And it's very low maintenance. The perennials in this bed, you clean them up in the spring and touch it up over the season a couple times, and that's all there is to it. And then cut it back in the fall. There's a perennial. It's called Lucifer's Cross, and this was started from one little bulb, and it's gotten into be quite a nice clump. And it shows a little bit later in the season, but it's flowers for, you get 3-4 weeks out of it easy. That looks beautiful from here. The clematis on the back. This clematis, it took about 3 years before it started to show really nice. And above on the roof of the gazebo is wisteria. And it's one of the hardy wisterias that we're able to grow in Algoma. It's a zone 3. I think it was Blue Moon it's called. It flowers in the spring, and then the flowers that hang down is really awesome plant. The yellow to orange is called red hot poker or trachoma lily. It takes about 3 years before it starts to flower properly. This season we used perennials along the back of the long fence bed, and this is the second year for them, and they showed beautiful this year. We've had so much rain that they really they grew just perfect. The echinacea and the rudbeckia, like the size of the blooms are absolutely awesome. Eh? Look at that. It's nice, eh? All these are all-American selections, so they all won award for best flower of the year, and each one is labeled. So it's a cool bed, and the flowers have been over the last 20 years. There's different winners, and really showed beautiful this year. To list them all the way along looks really awesome. So, like each variety, look here, we'll see the name is Petunia African Sunset. So it's kind of an orangey, peachy color. It's actually very different from what the usual colored petunia you could get. This one's Angelonia. It was an All-American winner. Here we have a dianthus. It's called Pink Jolt. Very nice flower. It flowers from first thing in the spring, and it goes almost through all the whole summer. This zinnia's called Starlight Rose. It's actually pretty, and it likes the warmer season. So this year it took a long time for it to really show. Moon Song Orange, and we've had that in the bed for the last 6 years. And zinnia, this is Zahara Double Fire. It's very pretty. This here's Bellevue Park's one of their signature beds. It's a ship's wheel, and if you looked at it from above, it's in the shape of a ship's wheel. We used a little bit of taller stuff like the sugar cane, purple millet, and the Wyoming canna for the centers, and it looks really awesome. Turned out very nice. There's a purple millet. It's All-American winner too. All-American selections. Okay, here's one of the new flower beds that we put in last year, a perennial bed, and it's a pollinator bed. So it's made of all different perennials. They flower at different times of the year, so it gives bees, butterflies, it gives something to feed on during the summer. It's amazing. Here we have chrysanthemum. It's Snow Lady. It's a beautiful. The buddleia or butterfly bush is going to flower a little bit later. The echinacea and rudbeckia, they flower for such a long period. It's an awesome flower to have. Right? Here we have bee balm, and it's bees absolutely love this flower here. This will flower for such an extended period of time that it's a good one for the insects to feed on for a whole season. This is delphinium. This is like the second time it's flowered. It'll flower first thing in the spring. If you cut it back really early in the season, you'll get a next bloom off it, usually around the end of August. Well, there's not very many really true blue flowers, so delphinium's one of them. Okay, this was the bed that we did for Canada's 150th anniversary, and we used the logo that they had created for the 150th anniversary, and we did it in flowers. We used mostly alyssum in it, and we used Altananthera as the red color, and it turned out very awesome. I did the white and the red to try to do a Canadian flag and use the emblem that they created for the leaf. This was our Roberta Bondar bed. It was her 25th anniversary of her flight, and we did a space shuttle for her. It was done by the carpenter shop, did a beautiful job, the city's carpenters, and Idolo was the main designer on it. Did a beautiful job. Okay, this is Altananthera, and if we keep it trimmed, it makes a nice lettering. And we started from cuttings in the winter, and we started getting the material for this bed probably January. For the top, it's a wire mesh, and in the mesh we put soil and sphagnum moss, and then we planted the alyssum through the sphagnum moss. It just finished flowering, but another 2 weeks it'll reflower and it'll be beautiful, good to go. And probably the next flowering will last throughout the rest of the season. This bed I did a color spectrum, so I went from reds to blues to orange and yellows. This is the back of our bed on Pym Street. We designed it so that it had 3 tiers, so that there wouldn't be a 10-foot drop off the back. So it was more of a safety concern than anything. But the display it turns out awesome. It looks like a wall of flowers. Yeah, there's Monarch. Isn't that beautiful? Can you get close up? The Monarch butterfly made a big comeback this year, because last year I didn't see any, and this year I've been seeing them all over, right? Like the city's put in, maybe a half a dozen big perennial beds, and the butterflies have been starting to come out pretty good. And the bees, piles of bumblebees. This is a daylily. I don't remember the variety name, but lasts quite a long time. This was the flower bed that we designed for the Centennial Library. It was their 50th anniversary. We used their logo, and we tried to make a design of a book, but it didn't quite show very well. If you look at it now, you'd be able to see. This was one of the first times we used the Altananthera for script, and it actually turned out fairly decent. This is the round bed in front of City Hall, and turns out to be a beautiful bed every year. We do sugarcane, cannas, dahlias in the center. Then the perennials remain year after year, and we just change the front around each year with annuals. This year, some of like the salvia turned out beautiful. The flower tobacco's awesome. But here we have Goldstrom Rudbeckia, and then you'll see the Indian Summer. So you see the different sizes and that they come in. This is the fountain bed at City Hall, and turned out nice this year. The perennials from the top part are absolutely beautiful. The amount of rain we got was It's made a perfect year for them. Okay, the city has like 250 hanging baskets and about 125 planters around the city throughout. These plants need about 2 inches of water a week at least just to survive. So anytime you see someone out and they happen to drizzling out and you see people watering and think it's a waste of time, it's not, because you rarely get enough rain that would keep this alive. That's why we water in the rain sometimes. Okay, this is a perennial. It's called a globe thistle, and it's such a beautiful blue color, but you gotta watch because it can spread. So usually we keep it trimmed and only keep a few of them around, but they turn out awesome. Look at the bees like it too, right? But it can be a base. This is the front steps at the Sault Ste. Marie's Civic Center, and turned out to be a beautiful bed. Did perennials in the background and then the annuals up front. The coleus turned out really nice this year. Hi there, welcome to Northern Gardener. Today we're going to show you how to start herbs from seed and transplant some herbs out, and we'll also do some harvesting. What we use for our seeding is Sungrow. It's a #1 mix. It's a mix of perlite, peat moss. We'll fill up our containers. This is a sterilized mix. So when you start in seeds, you kind of want a sterilized mix so that the seeds don't damp off. Because usually they're in most potting soil, there'll be like fungus and stuff that will affect your little seedlings as they come out of the ground. It's called damping off. By using a sterilized mix, we're ready to go. Using sterilized mix, usually you avoid damping off on your little seedlings as they come up. And we'll go into the other room and start some planting. Okay, when you're seeding a tray, you never want to seed into dry soil. So I always wet it down very well. Because the mix is very dry, it takes a few times so that it'll soak in. And that's where we'll put our seeds in. With the different herbs, as you can see, there's different, we got tarragon, chives, sweet marjoram, basil. Each herb, some of the seeds for like say thyme and rosemary, the seed's very, very fine, so it'll sit on the top of the soil. For like basil, the seed's a little coarser. So you need to go about 1/8 of an inch deep. So what I do for basil, I'll always make a little bit of a dent. Basil, I like to plant it in clumps so that you have 5 to 10 plants in each one. So I'll just go a little like that. Cover these up. Needs about 80 degrees to germinate. We'll use a water can with a finer breaker on it so that the water doesn't wash your seed out, especially with, say, mint and oregano. This way you know your soil's completely saturated and it'll have enough moisture for the seed to germinate. This seed bed here has heating coils in the bottom. If we look at it here, see the heating coils. It was heating coils from like that run along a roof. You can buy it at Canadian Tire. Put it in, we cover it with sand, so that we have a thermostat that's set at 80 degrees. So this has bottom heat, where the heat comes up through the soil. So the temperature of the soil is perfect for germination. Different seeds require like mint, oregano, thyme, those smaller seeds. Because they're a perennial herb, that's an annual. Because they're a perennial herb, they need a little bit cooler, so usually you do 70 degrees, which would be just room temperature. Always label your flats so that you know what you put in and what date you put it in. That way you got your temperature set at 80 degrees. And in 2 weeks, this is basil that's 2 weeks old. It was planted 2 weeks ago, and look how nice it is. Once you have your seedlings up, here we go. This was basil. Here's thyme seedlings. So you can see the size of it. It's ready to go from the packs that I started it in into a bigger 4-inch pot. This 4-inch pot will be good until we put it out in, usually it'll be May. We'll make an indent in here, pop it in, and there you go. You have your root ball. Usually within, say, a month or so, this will be big enough that you will actually be able to cut some from it and use it. Watch where you put it, or else it can spread. I put in 1 row of oregano years and years ago. It is now like a 1/4 acre. It chokes everything out. Because it can propagate from roots and seeds, it's just an aggressive plant. So usually I keep it in a pot, especially for like home use, or else you'll have it all over the place. It'd choke out your lawn. Here we have rosemary. Usually it starts from seed, but it's a little slow growing. I would think most households would need more than like 1 oregano plant, maybe 2 thyme, basil maybe a little more, and like something rosemary was not used very much. It just 1 plant's lots because it can get a fair size. Okay, this one's thyme. This was started last year, so it's a year-old plant. But this has been cut off all, but it just grows up very aggressive. There's rosemary. That's a year-old plant. It's been cut off at 2. This one will winter outside, hardy perennial. This one a little less hardy. This one usually has to be brought in a pot. Sault Ste. Marie, it doesn't always make it through the winter. Other herbs that you can grow over the winter would be ginger and turmeric. I grabbed 2 ones that are organic. Hopefully they haven't been sprayed with anything, so that you get they're more likely to grow. You would want to look for ginger. It doesn't have to be organic ginger. You look and you start seeing points that are wanting to grow. See it's a little on the green side. You could probably cut this into 2 pieces and you'd get 2 plants. But for here, we'll just pop this in. Put her in. You want to sink it in. Not too deep. The ginger actually doesn't grow very deep in the pot. It actually grows along the surface of soil. I'll just put a thin cover over it, like that. I'll label it. So average 80 degrees. So if you have a near heat red or a window which gets sun, a warm window, that's perfect for that. Put it in there, and usually takes only maybe 2 weeks for it to start to show through. Here's ginger. I started some, just put it in the seed bed, cut it up, and you can see it starting to poke through now. There's a nice healthy ginger seedling. It was be about 3 weeks old. Look at the size of that. This will take approximately 7 to 9 months in order to get to a harvestable size. I did some outside, and so this is Sault Ste. Marie. Fairly well this year because we had a nice warm summer, and doesn't like too much sun. Doesn't like the direct sunlight. In the winter greenhouse it seems fine. Doesn't turn. If you put it outside in the like hot sun, it'll bake it. Dig it down a little wee bit, you see this forming a new bulb. Nice white color. This is a plant. This was probably put in last spring. So this is a year old. There's a small pot, and it's kind of been ignored. You break the tops off. The top of the ginger actually smells nice, but I don't believe it's edible. Here we have some turmeric. This is like the superfood this year, I guess. It's lots of health benefits. It's supposed to be anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer. I grew quite a bit last season, and the demand for it was amazing at the market. They grind it up, cook with it. What you want to look for when you're buying it, if you're going to try to plant it, you want to look for the nodes growing on the side. You want usually 2 to 3 nodes on each piece that you plant. So this, I should be able to get 10 plants out of that. There we go. That will go. Usually I would put this in a 4-inch pot, just to start it out to get it to grow. As you can see, right like that. So there's a nice healthy turmeric seedling. That's about a month old. I put the growing plants up, about a 1/2 inch deep. A seedling like this size, it's a beautiful plant. It looks like a canna lily. It gets about 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall. So it's actually a beautiful plant. It's 80-degree temperature. Put it in there, and we'll be good to go. It usually takes about a month to come up, and quite fast growing once it does. I'm going to pull it out and see what we got here. This guy I'm going to use to plant my own, for my own seeding, ready to take off. So that was from one little piece of root. Some of it's too immature to go, but if I cut it off, these will each go in a pot, and we'll be able to produce a new plant from each one of those too. Produced from one little piece like that. Temperature of this greenhouse is in the 60s as a high and about 55 degrees for a low temperature. This is another herb. This is wasabi. They also call it Japanese horseradish. They use it on lots of different dishes. It kind of cleans the palate. It has kind of a real hot heat. It takes approximately 2 to 3 years to get wasabi. Usually you want the long stem on it. And you can see this one's still only maybe 1 inch long. So it has a long ways to grow. It has at least another season before it's ready for harvest. Requires a cool temperature, low light, which winter light in Sault Ste. Marie is very low. When we harvest this guy, if you look down in there, we'll see all sorts of shoots. Those become your new plants that you will use to grow out. You'll pick it off, it'll have a little bit of roots left on it, and you grow those as your starts. Okay, on a wasabi plant, as the leaves mature, they die off, but you can also eat the leaves, and you can eat the stalk of the leaves. And fairly warm, but less milder than the rhizome will be when it's harvested. But the whole plant's edible, including the flowers. Well, thank you for watching, and there's a few hints for you to learn how to grow herbs at home. Kind of interesting to do over the winter. Gives you something out of the snow.